On this video, I'm joined by a special guest to explore the topic of women and autism. I'm excited because the one and only autistic YouTuber Olivia Hops is my special guest. Let's go. Hey, welcome back. And for those that are new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining this community and taking the time to check out the videos. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. Since my adult diagnosis, I've devoted my time to advocating for the autistic community through my podcasts and these YouTube videos. And I do that with a goal in mind of raising the level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'd be delighted if you consider joining my community and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Just by subscribing to the channel, watching the videos, commenting, rating, and sharing, you're helping me reach more people across the planet and, well, increase the quality of lives of autistic people right across the planet. Now, women and autism is a topic my community have been asking me to cover for quite some time. And why wouldn't they? If anyone is qualified to speak on behalf of women and autism, it's me. Scratch that, Your Honor. Who better than to discuss women and autism than an amazing autistic woman herself, Olivia Hops. Olivia, who's an autistic YouTuber just like me, also diagnosed in adulthood at the age of 24. And as an autistic woman, her goal is to help others struggling with the same things she struggles with navigating the world as an autistic woman. I highly recommend you go and check out Olivia Hops on YouTube. But right now, let's chat to her about women and autism.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here with you. I know we've been trying to do this for a long time, so I am extra excited.
I am super excited. And by the way, can I just say thank you for your time? I appreciate it. It's also great to speak with you because I'm just a fan of what you do, but also I feel like, you know, it's a really important time for autistic women. So it's great to connect with one.
Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate that. That really means a lot. So thank you. But I'm equally excited and honored to talk to you. So yes, right back at you with all those compliments.
I get that a lot of people know your story, but you know, I guess the community that check out my stuff and maybe people that haven't kind of come to your party yet. Let's just start at the start, okay? So, Olivia, you're like me. You're an adult. And you're in the real world, and then a diagnosis appears and taps you on the back and says, "Hey, I recognize you. You're autistic." Can we start with that kind of journey, like how the journey and the diagnosis, how it started, how it came about?
My whole life, I've wondered why I do things a certain way or think certain things because it didn't seem quite the same as the people around me. And you know, I always used to say my brain doesn't work right because it didn't seem to match, you know, again, other people around me. And, you know, I'd have meltdowns as a full-grown adult, and I thought they were just somehow like a temper tantrum or something that I could not control. And I was just like, this cannot be like normal. I don't think there's other like 23-year-olds out there having giant meltdowns on a regular basis. And so, you know, growing up, I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And so I was diagnosed with both of those. And while it seemed to fit some of what I struggled with, it like, I felt like there was more. It wasn't everything. And so just by pure coincidence, I was in Washington State attending my best friend since kindergarten's college graduation. And after the graduation, we all went to dinner, like her family and me, and I sat across from her aunt, and I was babbling along as I usually do, explaining all my whole life story, leaving no detail out, and I could tell she was very like intently watching. And at the end of it, she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Oh, of course." And she's like, "Don't be offended, but have you ever been tested for autism?" And that word had never been mentioned to me before. I didn't even really know what autism was. I knew that I had an employee at my small business who was a young man who was also autistic, but I knew that's really all I knew. Like, I just knew him. I didn't know anything else about it. So it very much intrigued me when she said that. I wasn't offended. I was intrigued. And she said, you remind me of my daughter, who was 5 years younger than me at the time. So I think she was like 17. And she had been diagnosed just recently with autism. And so she said, maybe just like look it up if you want. And so, of course, that night I went back to the hotel and started reading, and it was, yeah, just like light bulb moment. Everything described me, and it was amazing.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I don't think it's unheard of to say we have similar stories. I think all adults diagnosed have similar stories. Yeah. It's really interesting. I found that the same, lots of anxiety and lots of things on the surface that, you see a psychologist about, but then it's like, even a psychologist for me was, when I was being treated for anxiety was like, there's a lot of kind of autistic, not red flags, but, like jumping out here. It even occurred to them. But then I like you, I felt like I still had to do this uni level type research, go online and like print out lists, and I highlighted the things and showed my wife, go on all these lists. And then it's funny because there was a gap after that where my brain told me, no, you're not. You just want to be, or you think you are. It's a list. And I actually got the list and I ripped it up and I threw it in the bin and I just said stuff like I almost fought the idea that what I wanted could come true. And I don't think, how stupid does your brain have to be? But I mean, it's not stupid. It's different. We got a different brain. That's a fact. Yes. And I had this phase where I was like, no, stuff the diagnosis. And I ripped it up like how we're always dramatic in what we do. This is what I think of the diagnosis.
Not fun just tossing it in the bin. You need to rip it up and throw it in the bin.
It's like the imposter thing, right? You fight it. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, I literally, what you said happened to me almost exactly. I'm not sure I printed out lists, but I like wrote them on my phone or on a piece of paper, everything that I related to. And I showed my mom and my boyfriend at the time, now fiance, and it wasn't until a year and a half after that date that I actually got diagnosed, because very much the same reason as you, I was like, I must be faking it somehow. The voice in my head can be really mean, and it's like you're over exaggerating whatever. So I absolutely relate to what you said, like literally like 100%. And on top of it, when I first brought it up with my weekly therapist that I was going to, she shut the idea down immediately. And so between my brain already being kind of mean, and then between a professional's opinion, I was really like, oh my gosh, how did I get this so wrong? Like, I mean, when I walked out of my therapist appointment that week, I was mortified. I literally went home and told my boyfriend, I was like, I have to find a new therapist because I just embarrassed myself so bad in front of her. I can't ever show my face in there again. So yes, I can absolutely relate to that.
And what's funny is certainly I get emails from people in your neck of the woods where the healthcare system is a lot harder to access and a lot more costly. In Australia, yes, it's more of a Medicare system. Anyway, so they always talk about, I can't afford to have multiple like appointments or knockback diagnosis like my story. What's the tips? Like, people always ask me, oh, what's the tips? And I'm like, what do you want me to say? But I guess, the fact is we all have that story. Unfortunately, the first psychiatrist who dealt with autistic diagnosis, obviously he was more of a pediatric focus. He said no because I went to uni and from time to time I looked him in the eye. I'm not. Okay.
That's similar to my therapist. She said the reason, she's like, but you can hold a conversation with me right now. Yeah. So no.
And we now know, like everything, things evolve. The understanding of things evolve. That's just, and the brain, we still have, no one knows about the brain. In 2022, you ask a doctor or a scientist about the brain, Like, seriously. So yeah, it was really, and then I was lucky enough to find a professor in psychiatry of autistic adult diagnosis. So he was like, a uni-based professor, and he said, you walked in the door and I knew you were autistic. How do you walk autistic?
Do you have like autism radar where you like meet somebody and you're like, oh yeah, they're on the.
Don't start me on this. My wife's going to kill me. The problem is, I don't know if it's a radar or I've lost my mind, because I reckon 1 in 2 people I meet, I go, I think they're autistic.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I kid you not. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not everybody can be autistic, Olivia. But I swear, like, so many people I meet, I'm like analyzing like what they're doing, or like, so like an example, my best friend now, her sister, she was telling me about her sister, and like she seems like flashing lights autistic, but I don't know how to bring that up to my friend because I don't want her to possibly get offended, but it's like super obvious to me anyways.
I'm totally with you. A lot of times I actually say the line to my wife, I know everyone can't be autistic, but it's like, and it's funny because I don't know about your fiance, but it rubs off on my wife. She's like, I think that person could be this, that. And you're watching TV and you're watching movies, and I'm like, that character is acting very autistic, and then I go into like this autistic coding rant about people writing characters but not actually saying they are, and then it all goes badly. And I guess the point is now the entire world are now going to avoid us for eternity. Yeah. Because if they come in contact with us, they may get a diagnosis.
Pointing at them. Diagnosis, walking down the street.
Stamp them. Like they do on cattle, right on the butt. Autistic.
Yes.
Well, that's what happened to us. We're talking about diagnosis, so let's talk about yours. So we talked about the journey to it, but I want to know the real stuff, because a lot of people go through some pretty dark times pre and after diagnosis. So how did the diagnosis change you, change your life, change the people around you, I guess change your experience in the world? So
my experience was really mostly nothing but good, because I had been searching for answers for so long. It was such a relief and just excitement, because I'd literally been like, since I was 8 years old, screaming at God during meltdowns, asking him why he made me like this. And he finally gave me my answer. And so I was ecstatic. And my mom, she burst into tears immediately, because it was, also a relief off her shoulders, because she, had gone through life thinking like she had done something wrong or something. And so it gave her relief as well, and relief that I now knew. And, getting the diagnosis, not only answered my questions, but it then gave me, an understanding of how my brain works and why I was doing those things that I didn't understand why I did, or that was different from a family member. And so just like my life has been so much better since the diagnosis, because I've been able to understand, what causes my meltdowns and stressors and all that stuff, to avoid those things as much as I can, and just live a little bit less anxious life and an easier life. I'm not like fighting with my autism, the unknown autism. It's now like we kind of have an understanding of each other and whatnot. And, also gave me, and it, not an excuse, because that's not the right word, but like when I would be feeling overwhelmed or having a meltdown or whatever it may have been, and like I had plans to go like meet a friend or go to a family function, and I just like knew like I can't go, it's not happening. And either my mom or me, depending on, she would talk to her family, I would obviously talk to my friends, would make up some excuse as to why I couldn't go. Oh, I'm busy, I'm working, I don't feel good, whatever it was. And now with that autism diagnosis, I can say, I just can't make it today because XYZ, and there's no more excuses. I can be very open and truthful. And so I understand, like you mentioned, some people go through a really dark time afterwards, because, they're angry that it took them this long to figure it out. They're, maybe feeling a sense of like they don't know who they are, like lost identity. And I definitely felt those slightly because, you know, I was wondering like, wow, who am I without my mask on? I don't really know. And of course, frustration that it took this long to figure out. And also just kind of like, why'd you make me wait so long, God? Like, why did you make me wait 24 years to find out? And I think I figured out why, but, yeah, so I get those feelings and I had them slightly, but overall it was just like a celebration. Like I could have thrown myself a parade. Like it was overwhelmingly good for me.
Yeah, and I can completely relate to the kind of weight lifted off your shoulders, or the lightness your body then feels, and it's like a rebirth. I can completely relate to all those things. And I guess for me, some of the things that I had to tackle were, like you said, well, who am I then? Who am I then? Who have I been? If this is, you know, and also the idea that your brain tries to come up with an answer, right? You must just be a bad person. You must just not be deserving of friends or good things. You're here to suffer. Absolutely. You know, your brain comes up with these reasons. Why are these rejections and potholes in life? And then when you get the diagnosis, that isn't the case. But then you've still got a brain to talk out of that.
Yes.
I mean, it's your brain, but still, so it can be I found it a really hard time, a really amazing time and a great time, but a real hard time. And also, you mentioned it, and it's a great conversation, the idea of an excuse. And I think, here's the thing, right? So excuses and justifications are just that. They're things people use to justify something, where I think people who have a one form or another of a medically diagnosed disability, whatever that may be, people who are autistic, who whatever. There's reasons why there's things they can and can't do, or do and do not want to do, and that's based on their own individual circumstances. But that's a reason why, based on, and that's why I agree that why doesn't my 8-year-old son want to go to his mate's birthday party? The reason is because he's autistic and he doesn't want to. The reason isn't because we're out of town or he's sick. He's woke up with a runny nose, better not go. Their justifications people might go, well, that's not a reason. Yes, it is. That's the reason.
That's the reason. I don't need to explain the reason. Like, that's the reason. If you want to go do research on it, like, or ask me questions about it, great. But that is the reason. And I was just like your son, because I never wanted to go to a birthday party, and my mom would force me to go. Thank you for not forcing him to go and enduring that, because it's not so fun.
And you know what? Parents do the best they can, and even in this generation, I being autistic and having a neurotypical wife and two young boys, I get it wrong more than I get it right. It's hard, man. It's hard with kids. I say it a lot of my videos and podcasts, and I don't mean it in a depressive way or a joking way. I mean it in just a serious way. Honestly, I reckon if I had the best advice to give myself, if I asked myself, knowing now, because diagnosis came after kids, because that happens a lot. You have kids and you realize that's me. I'd probably go, you know what? I don't know if kids is the right thing for me. I don't know if, as an autistic guy, I'm built to have kids and parent them in an appropriate neurotypical way. But then I realize, well, there's no typical way, and maybe an autistic kid would rather an autistic parent who can actually go, no, it's okay if he just sits on the couch all day. I don't care if it's sunny. Right. Who cares if it's sunny? So it's a vicious battle in my head.
Yeah. And I can completely relate, because, I'm getting married, and I don't think I want to have kids for similar reasons as you. Like, I don't think I would be a good parent, because I need, my alone time, and, I don't think I would be able to function with the crying and whatever it may be. And, it's been a conversation I've had to have with my fiance, because when we met like almost 8 years ago. He like really wanted to be a dad, and and we've had this conversation many times, like, I don't know if I will ever want kids. People are always like, oh, you'll change your mind, like, as you get older, like in my early 20s. Well, like, now I'm past, the halfway point in my 20s, and that's not changing at all, at the moment. So I completely understand. And that's something that I feel like on an everyday basis, because even though my fiance has agreed, like, that's okay, like, we don't need to have kids, we can have dogs, those are our kids, that's fine. But I still feel some guilt for it, you know, for sure. So I completely get what you mean. And like, you have that video, I think it's titled like, I'm a terrible husband or something. And yeah, I'm like the terrible girlfriend or the fiance now as well. So I can relate to that too.
But you know, hey, maybe this is the conversation that was meant to be to help you. I think it'll happen in 5 years for you. I genuinely think in the next kind of 5-7 years, it'll happen for you. I think probably just one genetically. Have to keep that in mind genetically. But then I found, and in the diagnosis, there's like capital A, capital B, capital C, and like A's the social stuff, B's the repetitive stuff, and C is the adult stuff no one ever looks at. And that's when your capacities are outweighed by the demands and stresses placed upon you. This is really an adult part. And that's what happened after kids. When I met my wife, probably like you, a happy-go-lucky life, you know, it was masking, doing my thing, unaware that my capacities were higher. And then you get married and you have a kid and my capacities were starting to creep down, right? And then the stresses, and then the dam breaks. And so I think all I would say is I know that if I wasn't here, my boys would absolutely be devastated and miss me. And I know that means that one way or another, in my own special way, I'm a good dad. And I feel the same for you. I feel the same for you. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, we're not going to be neurotypical parents, but if we have supportive partners, and the fact of the matter is, I say it every time, alone time and meltdowns are not kid things. Trust me, there's no stress in life for kids compared to adults. So in the end, if your partner is cool for you to hand him the baby and go to a quiet room and chill and do what you want to do for a little bit, I guarantee as a team, if you work like that, like me and my wife, it will be something that you will look back on and go, God, thank goodness we did this, right? So, I mean, anyway, I'm not trying to push you either way. I just want to make sure I'm not pushing you away. That's all. Because
no. But no, I just so many things that what you just said there. Another reason, and this was actually before I was diagnosed, I think, and my fiance and I were talking about it. Like, I don't know if I want to have kids because what if they turn out like me? You know, not that I'm like think of myself as bad necessarily, though sometimes, because obviously the brain is mean, but just like, I was like, I don't want them to have to go through like all the like stress and anxiety and depression and traumas that I went through growing up. Like, that's just, it's terrible. And my fiance is like the complete opposite of me. Like, he's so chill and go with the flow. So he absolutely would take the baby. I'm sure he would like he would do everything for me. I have zero doubt in my mind that he would do everything for me. So no, I thank you for your vote of confidence, because something actually that has been on my my mind and like heart for a while now, not like constantly, but I've been thinking about it for a while now, is possibly adopting a slightly older child. Obviously that comes with a whole new set of difficulties, but something that is kind of close to my heart. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
I do think it's something that I think it's going to happen, Olivia, and I think you will be a good mom, and you'll have a great kid, and that's the thing. Like, God only knows what would happen to the world without people like us, right? I mean, we don't want to stop making them. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, yes, I know, and it's funny because like I like the idea of being a mom. Like, I like the idea of being a mom and having kids. It's just, I don't know if I could like execute what is needed to be executed.
It's bloody horrible. It's the worst bloody thing you could ever do. But in addition to that, it's the best thing. So I'm just trying to be honest. Like so I
hear that.
You have to do it. I really think you have to do it.
It's hard.
In saying that, I told my wife, you can get stuffed. I'm not getting up. It's 2 a.m. You go and deal with it. I'll see you in the morning. Okay. So let's be clear. We might not, I might not be the get
my sleep. Like,
okay. So be very clear. Be very clear with your partner. Okay, mate, we can do this, but trust me, champ, there ain't no night shift for me.
I'm going to be in bed with my earphones in. Like, I mean, it's just, no, I get it. Because it's like, I need my sleep.
I don't get up in the night, Olivia. So feel unburdened.
Okay.
I don't help in the night.
Okay.
There's no night
Because
help.
I couldn't, because I would be like, I need my sleep. Like, I eat from a baby. Like, I came out and like needed my sleep, or like I could not function.
At one point early on, I was
yes.
growling. My wife's like, "Did you just growl at the baby?" I'm like, "It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, it's like, okay, you better go back to bed."
Please be quiet. I gotta get sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm like a deep sleeper, and my fiance, he like can't. He's like such a light sleeper. So, I mean, I'm sure it would not be far-fetched for me to just completely sleep through everything every night, and he would go deal with it. Like, I don't think I'd even wake up.
That's me. My wife's like, "How did you not hear last night? How did you not hear it? It was thunder and lightning, and the baby was screaming, and the other kid was running
my
around the
God,
house half naked because he peed through his bed. Well, how did you not hear this?" I'm like, "Really? I thought it was just a quiet night."
I know that my parents and my fiance, because we're living with them right now, they'll be like, "Did you hear like the earthquake last night, or did you see the thunder or whatever?" And I'm like, "No." "Oh my gosh, really?" They're like, "It was huge. How did you not feel that?" I was like, "I don't know. I was sound asleep."
Do you know that the baby was punching and kicking you in the head last night to get your attention? No, I didn't. I had a good sleep though. It's like, this is true. These are true stories.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of Alex. I'm like, he's like, "You're like a dead body when you're asleep. Like nothing will wake you." He's like, "I've like literally like put my hand on your face and like shoved you like backwards on the bed, and you just keep on sleeping." Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one with that too.
No, you're not. So I hope this conversation helps you unburden yourself of this idea there's like expectations. I just think it's something if you do, and you'll love it and you'll enjoy it, and it'll be hard and it'll be easy. But yeah, anyway, you are enough to do it.
Well, we'll go back in 5 years and see this video. You're calling it right now. You're calling it.
I don't know why,
We'll
good or
see.
bad. I keep feeling girl. I don't know why I keep feeling girl. Anyway, girl in 5 years.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
I'm obviously always wrong. I'm never right. So it's a boy in 7 years. That's what I would go with. Whatever I say, do the reverse. All right.
Oh my god.
I want to talk about some challenges. Okay, I'm sorry, I've gone off track here. We are gonna. I will
I'm
stop talking
loving
very
this
soon,
conversation.
but I just want to talk about challenges because this is important for the women, the girls listening, the women, whoever. What are the biggest challenges you feel personally as an autistic woman, and I guess also prior to diagnosis, compared to say me, compared to say the stereotypical white boy? What are some of the biggest challenges you've found?
I think the biggest challenge is that social aspect where, a lot of times in society, women are supposed to be like more social, or they're supposed to be, out with their friends or shopping, or, all that stereotypical things that like a woman or, a mom or a housewife should be doing. And I just was never interested in those things. And so it was like, as I was saying, I was canceling things, and it's like, I don't want to do this or don't want to do that, and making up lies. And so it was kind of the guilt almost, to be honest. Like, that was one of the most difficult things. Like, obviously anxiety was huge. I was constantly anxious. I didn't understand why. So it was like making me so frustrated. But then also the guilt of like, why don't I want to do this? Why don't I want to participate? Like, why can't I get myself out of bed to go to dinner with my friend? Like, why can't I do that? And so again, the mean voice, like beating myself up about it. And I think, and I've heard from many women who feel somewhat the same, obviously everyone's different, but the same, like, just so much relief when they got that diagnosis, to know that they weren't just like, they weren't faking it, or they weren't being a baby, or whatever. It was real. And so that's what I struggled with the most prior to diagnosis. Now I think just obviously still the anxiety. I don't think I'll ever not be anxious. I was born anxious. Like, I'm just always anxious. And the masking, is exhausting, and trying to unmask is extremely hard for me. And I really haven't figured out how to do it yet completely. And so it's like, very much balancing my time, because it's like if I go and do something with a friend and I'm masking and whatnot, then it's like, okay, but now I gotta rest for like 2 days to recover from that. Yeah, and so that's what I feel the most challenging. And then like you said, compared to you as a man, obviously autism is not as well known, with as a female thing. And so getting people to like understand that, telling somebody like, oh yeah, I'm autistic, and getting the like, oh, like, no, you're not, you don't look autistic, you don't seem autistic, you're a girl, like whatever, or, oh, you struggle, okay, a little bit, but it's like not that bad. And so just kind of dealing with those kind of negative things and getting people to almost like believe me, that's like a bad way to say it, I guess, but kind of like believe me that like, hey, no, like this is actually real, and I can't actually do what you're asking me to do because I'm autistic. And so the masking thing, and it's like if I could figure out the masking thing where I was a little bit more raw, then maybe I wouldn't have as big of a trouble like convincing people. Not that that's my job, but you know what I mean. So I think those are the main things that I struggle with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I'd add that I'm sure I get away with more traits than you would. That I would add that, and let's make that generalized. I feel that me, a white guy, can get away with being more matter of fact, more honest, more open, more brutal, more autistic than maybe you would in the same situation, right? And it's a gender bias thing. You're rude, I'm autistic. And I think that can be a real challenge. Talking about those kind of things, this is the last thing I wanted to ask from you for people listening. What have you collected along the way, like little tips and hacks and lessons? What's your diagnosis taught you? What have you learned for kind of, navigating life as an autistic woman?
I think the first tip is like learn how to say no. I could not say no, like, and maybe that's another like gender bias thing where like you could say no to like a social outing because you're a man, whereas a woman, it's like, oh, but you're a woman, like you need to go socialize and whatnot. So learning how to say no. I still struggle with it at times, but I'm getting better, and it's something that I practice and have been practicing, because it's just like I was way too polite and I couldn't say no. And basically, if you say no, you're putting yourself first and you're making sure you don't go into a situation that you're uncomfortable with or that could have, damaging effects or whatever. And so learning how to say no and, allowing myself to put myself first and trying to not feel guilty. And so that's my number one tip. Learn how to say no, and then practice being kinder to yourself. Like, it's okay to say no, and it's okay not to go to XYZ. It's okay. Another thing is learn your triggers for like what triggers meltdowns or shutdowns, because now that I know that like, really loud noises or something makes me very anxious, and like crowded grocery stores or any kind of store I have trouble going to unless it's like right when they open because nobody's in them. And so now I know, like I have little earbuds that can filter out the sound, or even wireless headphones and listen to music, so that I don't have to deal with the stressors that could cause me to have a meltdown. So learn your triggers as well, and learn what you can handle almost. It's like if you're gonna go out for the day with people and socialize and do whatever, for me that usually means the next day I'm kind of useless. I need to rest, I need to recover. And yes, and it's like that's okay, but like you need to plan that accordingly. It's like if I have a really busy day the next day, then that's going to mess some things up. And we were trying to film last week, and I'd had a really busy couple of days, and then this was coming, and I told you I was feeling very overwhelmed. And like you were mentioning with like how much you can handle versus like how much like you're supposed to be doing, and that was very off balance that whole week. And so learning that, like how much you can handle. It's like if you go out for lunch or something, maybe that equals, like an hour of alone time or something. So just, yeah, really getting in tune with yourself, so that, because you know yourself best, and it's like no matter how much help you get, it's like you know yourself best, and you have to implement the tools. A doctor or a therapist or whoever, like they can give you tools, I can give you tools, but you got to really look within and implement them, or obviously they're not going to help. But those are definitely my biggest tips. I think that's been just such a game changer in my life.
And you know what? You're right. Theory will not help you. You must put it into practice. You can't just listen to Olivia. You have to do it. You have to try it, right? That makes sense.
Do what I tell you.
Exactly. But, isn't it so autistic to know everything in theory, but very rarely put anything into practice? It's like we're the gurus of everything, but we don't do any.
No, I know what you mean, for sure. And it was funny. I do some coaching with other autistic people, and I was talking to a client today about just like his fear of starting something, and and about how as autistic we can be super fearful of the unknown. And I was also actually talking to my therapist this morning about that same topic, about how it's really hard for me to go into a situation that I don't know, that's unpredictable. But like, say, it's like I can get really overwhelmed with like driving to a new place because I don't know exactly where it is and like trying to find it. But like once I go once, then every other time is fine, because now I can predict and understand and know what's going to happen. So, obviously it's hard to make those first steps, like you were saying, in anything kind of that we do, whether it's implementing, a tip that somebody gave you, or whether it's something as big as like starting a business or whatever it is. The first step's the hardest, but you're not gonna make improvements if you just sit and do nothing. And so it's like in 5 years time, you can look back and be like, wow, I wish I would have freaking done something then, because look how far I'd be now. Or in 5 years, you can look back and be like, wow, I've come so far, I'm glad I started. So yes, it's like you were saying, you got to be able to implement it, and it might be scary, but you got to try, because the worst that can happen is maybe it doesn't work, or you get a no or whatever. But if you don't try at all, then it's a for sure no, and it will for sure not work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And last thing, I think Orion is a great name for a kid, just saying. Okay, now, but anyway, we need to go. Olivia, thank you so much for your time. It's been like seriously awesome talking. I hope we can talk again.
Oh yes, I absolutely want to, because we're clearly so similar, and you get me, I get you, and we both have autism radar, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The amazing Olivia Hops. Add that to the list of some incredible and amazing autistic women I've had the privilege of meeting and chatting to on this channel. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to help me improve the lives of autistic people right across the planet. Until my next video, thank you so much for your support, and we'll talk soon.